The Iron Man trilogy is interesting because of its status among trilogies in the MCU. That status being ignored. When people talk about their favorite or best trilogies, Iron Man's is almost never mentioned. Which is strange because Tony Stark was the MCU. Yet a great deal of the sauce surrounding this character revolves around his guest appearances. Well, I believe...
Aang can save the world.
Stop! I believe that the reason for this dissonance is disconnection. Let me explain. Many of the MCU trilogies have through lines that are easy to grasp and follow. Guardians is about found family from start to finish, mostly. Captain America focuses on Steve and Bucky, or my ship name for them, Stucky.
Nice.
The Thor trilogy focuses on Loki and Thor, and correctly makes the decision to not make a fourth movie. Spidey has to get over his Tony fixation and become his own Spoder-Man, and even Ant-Man follows Scott's relationship with Cassie. But the Iron Man trilogy is not really a trilogy. It's more like 3 stories from a Monster of the Week type show, which weakens the trilogy as a whole. So we're here to fix that, together, as family. So let's do so. But first, let's establish some ground rules. What I want to do here is change this trilogy without changing the trajectory of the entire MCU. So we're going to keep Iron Man 1 exactly the same, because that's the best of the trilogy and a good springboard. Then we're going to modify 2 and 3 not just to rework this narrative into something better, but also fit it neatly into the timeline we already have. Let's get into it. Iron Man 2 is, to a lot of people, the weakest in this trilogy, which is saying something because Iron Man 2 is good.
Success.
It's funny.
What?
The action is decent, the stakes are high but manageable, and more impressively, it juggles so much. Here's what this movie handles. Tony's sickness and focus on legacy, introducing War Machine, introducing Black Widow, furthering the Nick Fury / Avengers storyline, introducing / defeating a villain, and concluding the Pepper and Tony romance. That's a lot, and this movie manages all of it fairly cleanly. So hats off to Jon Favreau for that. Even if he did later make Cowboys and Aliens, which hurt my feelings. Anyway, we're not here just to glaze, we're here to fix. Cause while all that stuff worked, it worked in the context of this movie, not a trilogy or cinematic universe. So grab your hammer and let's get to work. Change number 1. No more sickness. In this movie, Tony is sick and dying, so he goes on an extended crash out that pushes people away and puts himself in danger. But we're adding a step here that doesn't need to exist. Keep the crash out, we love a crash out, and I love young people's lingo, but let's swap the reason for the season. Tony shouldn't be acting like a madman because he's dying, because that doesn't really hold any weight post-recovery. He should be acting like a madman because he feels like a god. Imagine a narcissist who thinks he's smarter than everyone suddenly gaining the might of a one-man army and the attention of the entire world. That goes straight to anyone's noggin, especially a Stark boy. But with this new level of godhood, Tony should feel like he is the line. He is the world's sword and shield, protecting it via the sheer breadth of his grandeur. And while that position does feed his narcissism, it also feeds Tony's paranoia. Especially since... Change number 2. Rhodey is a spy-e. I find the movie relationship between Tony and Rhodey to be odd. Cause like, Black Widow calls Rhodey Tony's best friend, but they don't act like best friends. Or even friends. They act like what they are, which is a former weapons dealer and a military officer that have an out-of-work quasi-friendship. There's an insidious undertone to their relationship that I don't think any of the movies actually really acknowledge, which is a failing. Yeah, you know what? Screw you, Jon Favreau. I hate you now, and I hate superheroes, and I hate movies. Let's fix it. Let's make Rhodey a spy. Because the US government would likely just confiscate or assassinate, but let's say in this universe they're going the espionage route via an already open channel. Rhodey is instructed to manipulate Stark in order to acquire his own suit or convince Tony to submit to the government. So he reluctantly uses their prior relationship to get close to Tony, which can serve as a contrast against Natasha, because she gets close to Tony by being someone she's not for good-ish reasons, whereas Rhodey gets close to Tony by showing concern and trying to tamper down Tony's ego, thus begging the question from the audience on whether Rhodey is being authentic or just playing the part. Either way, this spy mission results in Rhodey getting the suit, when Tony gives it to him willingly. Because this Tony is, by Rhodey's suggestion, test driving sharing the burden of being the world's protector. However, in a further deviation from the OG, this Rhodey doesn't take the suit back to the military. He instead realizes, maybe halfway to the nearest base, that he doesn't like what he's doing. After all, Tony trusts him, and relies on him to make Iron Man a better man, along with Pepper. So Rhodey turns back during the climax to admit to Tony that he was a spy, while also helping our hero face his villain. And speaking of the villain and slick sexy segues, change number 3. Slash Whiplash and Reforge Hammer. Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer is fun. Just straight up.
Thank you.
If I had to wax poetic on Justin Hammer's villainy, I'd probably say, it's good, but it could be better. Now dig on this. Instead of Hammer being a rich idiot, let's make him a dark mirror. Hammer should be just as smart as, if not smarter than, Stark. But dearest Justin was never trapped in a cave with a box of scraps, so his moral compass always points to whatever makes me feel like the golden god I am. As such, he's both a refraction of Tony and also a hater. Because why is everyone worshipping Tony when he's so unmistakably inferior? Our new villain's superiority complex is off the chain, as the young people say, to the point where Hammer has actually replicated the arc reactor and Iron Man armor, but refuses to use or sell it cause Tony made it first. After all, he doesn't just want to beat Tony, he wants everyone to know he's superior to Tony. Enter our primary antagonist. Not Ivan Vanko, Donald Gill, who in this version is an early 20ish genius and former protege of T. Stark. In his youth, Donald poured his soul into research on temperature manipulation in hopes of creating a device to control the weather. He planned to then use his miracle machine altruistically for humanitarian efforts across the globe. And your boy did eventually manage to develop and build his invention, with the help of Stark. Right before Tony took credit for the design, sold it to the highest bidder, and had a defiant Donald blackballed.
Oops.
So, obviously, Donald wants revenge. And he follows a similar arc as Vanko in the OG, with the added caveat that instead of Vanko manipulating Hammer, Hammer is manipulating Gill, and usurping the fatherly bond that Tony discarded, even if it's an act. In this new story, Gill creates an exoskeleton that allows him to freeze things, then challenges Tony in order to show the world how unworthy Stark is of his accolades. And he pushes our boy beyond his limits, which is why Rhodey needs to back his bro up in the final battle, wherein, despite Tony's attempts at reconciliation, Donald attempts to take his foes' lives as he destroys his own. Ending on a semi-somber note plants the seeds for future installments. Tony takes his double Donnie failure in stride on the surface, but there should be hints that he's shaken after squandering a man's talent and life. Especially since his absenteeism and coldness is a reflection of his father's towards him. This additionally carries over to his future relationship with Peter, as he tries not to repeat the mistakes of the past and to instead be a better person and mentor. While in the present, Justin Hammer, who gets off for his crimes scot-free, returns as a recognizable face in a future movie. Right now. You know what? After rewatching this movie, I now realize 3 is actually my least favorite of the trilogy. It has the most fat in terms of pointless side plots and characters, and does not string together its storylines as well as its predecessors. But the thing that's really interesting about Iron Man 3 is that it's not a sequel to Iron Man 2. It's a sequel to The Avengers, and as such, it abandons continuity. But we would never abandon continuity, would we? No, because we're a family, and families love continuity. Change number 1. Lose the kid. Look, nobody even knows this guy's name, which is Harley Keener, by the way. He's not even a genius or engineer. He doesn't even go here. The only time anyone ever cared about this kid was when Riri showed up, which, I wonder why. So let's kill him. I mean ditch him. Cause by nixing the boy wonder, we free ourselves up for a buddy cop movie. Tony and Rhodey against the world. Both of our lads are robbed of their armors and neither fully know what they're doing. So they must rely on one another's strengths to squeeze by, while cracking jokes and skulls along the way. This is the perfect opportunity to highlight these two characters' friendship and how they complement one another. Tony is the tech guy who can figure out what they're up against and how to overcome or disable it, whereas Rhodey is the soldier who can strategize and actually fight. Also, it'd be fun to let the characters subvert expectations a little. Like, as the movie progresses, Rhodey becomes bolder and devolves into an action hero, spitting out dumb puns and thinking he's invincible, while an armorless Tony starts out cocky, but becomes an increasingly cautious pseudo-parent to his more bombastic companion. He could even be a little taken aback by Rhodey's shift. Like, dang, you really enjoyed killing those guys, huh? Making this dynamic duo the core of this flick is a loop-de-loop, as the kids say. Because at the end of the day, this is a Shane Black movie. And I don't know if you knew this, big dog, but Shane Black is Hollywood talk for buddy cop. So it's a match made in heaven. Change number 2. Lose the grandpa. Does anyone genuinely like the Mandarin twist? I've met people who think it's okay, but no one thinks this innately adds to the movie in a way that would make it above erasure. Also, this twist isn't just bad now, it's so bad that its echoes do future psychic damage to Shang-Chi. Remember Shang-Chi? Man, those were some wild times. Anyway, change number 3. Hammer returns. This is an almost 1-to-1 switch. My Justin Hammer is pretty much already Aldrich Killian, just with one additional movie of setup, which is a major boon for this switch as we understand the villain more. Plus the synergy of Iron Man fighting an ice-based villain then a fire-based one, and the synergy of him fighting his mentor, protege, then a dark reflection, gives this trilogy some, je ne sais quoi. 2 changes though. Firstly, Hammer develops Extremis as an expansion of Donnie Gill's schematics, albeit in the opposite direction. And lastly, we don't need a 90s nostalgia bait scene where Tony wrongs Justin. If anything, it'd be more entertaining if Hammer had a nice upbringing with loving parents. He's an amoral jerk because he's an amoral jerk. And because he's a member of the bourgeoisie. In terms of Hammer's defeat, I'm of 2 minds. Or rather, within me are 2 wolves. The first thinks it'd be better for Justin to be captured and imprisoned to possibly be used at a later date, which ironically enough would mean he outlives Tony. Whereas the second likes the idea of Hammer not only getting murked, but specifically getting murked by Rhodey, who isn't even on his radar. Also, to align with the previous change of Rhodey becoming more of a showboat, it'd be funny to have him boom Hammer while spewing a dumb action line like, "It's hammer time," or "Get hammered." Something bad enough that he could turn to Tony after and be like, "Eh? Eh?" Change number 3. Reverse Tony's arc. This is my biggest gripe with this movie. Iron Man 3 is a sequel to The Avengers that is immediately invalidated by Avengers 2. Cause this movie ends with Tony blowing up all his suits and fixing his heart and getting with Pepper instead of me. But then Avengers 2 starts with Tony having a fleet of suits, being on the front lines, and building a joke bot. Well, I say nay. Instead of this film being a bridge to nowhere, we're making it a ramp to Age of Ultron. And we're doing it by reshaping the man himself. In Iron Man 2, we made Tony feel like a god. So in Iron Man 3, he should feel small. He's lost his tech and his riches. He has to mostly rely on Rhodey for fighting. And not only did Donnie Gill almost murk him in the last movie, in this one Justin Hammer got even closer. So instead of Tony pulling back from being a workaholic at the close of this saga, let's take a different route. As this story progresses, a subtextual arc should be Tony's frustration with his physical limitations. Cause even with the Iron Man suit, he's just one guy. And even with Rhodey, they're just two guys. So in a realm of aliens and gods and Hawkeyes, Tony becomes enamored by the idea of expanding beyond him and Rhodey, while still maintaining control. Via drones. In fact, it'd be cool if Tony built a makeshift remote-controlled drone as a prelude to the Iron Fleet in Avengers 2. Then in a post-credit scene we could see him building a rough prototype for Ultron. That's kinda the whole point of this exercise. To make the trilogy more cohesive, but also to go even further beyond and tie the trilogy into the MCU. There's been a lot of hullabaloo in reference to how disconnected the post-Endgame MCU feels, which is fair. But pre-Endgame wasn't perfect either. That being said, hindsight is 2020. So I don't fault the showrunners of the time for not having foresight. Yeah, you know what? I love you, Jon Favreau. I love superhero movies again, especially Morbius. And Cowboys and Aliens was actually, that's all for this one. Like and subscribe, because I've got more fixes, essays, and whatnot in the works. And until the next one, cheers.